Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our 2019 spring opening meeting, and thank Roman Greer, our audience of 3. We're blessed indeed. Just a couple of quick comments before we start. If you haven't had a chance, we're so happy that Ron Leidner is our food service provider because, as well as the food, the environment up there, golf specific, is just off the scale. You deserve to go and see it. Witness it yourself, my humble recommendation. And in terms of progress, I've never seen so much asphalt laid down in one single place. We are not building a new airport. It is our glorious parking lot, and well-deserved for the members and guests. So without further ado, I'd like to get into the consent agenda with a motion to approve the December minutes.
So moved. So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Second by Tom Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
John? Okay. That brings us to the director's report. And for once, I didn't forget poor Roman.
Okay, I'm ready.
He's ready.
I thought for our first talk of the year, I'd start broad and then get a little more specific, so. Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
So I'll start with just a state of the golf industry because we did just get the National Golf Foundation's annual report for 2018, and it was quite interesting and very positive. I'll break the rules of the PowerPoint and read right from the slide here some key points. Although not quite at pre-Great Recession levels, golf participation remains strong and interest in playing the game is at historic levels. The number of courses will continue to contract over the next several years as part of a needed correction of oversupply. Yet acquisitions, renovations, and select new course construction provides ample evidence of the confidence of capital markets in golf. And as course operators invest in their product, golfers will continue to have access to increasingly high-quality courses at reasonable rates. Golf is a competitive industry that faces its share of challenges. This in part is true in an era when the general public has so many choices when it comes to deciding how to spend their recreational time and discretionary income. The prescription for future growth lies in ground-up efforts to sell the game, including making golf more welcoming and less intimidating for beginners, and by having more success converting trials into committed players. So that's the National Golf Foundation's summary for 2018. Very positive. So they see interest in playing golf for beginners at historic levels, and the golf population has stayed stable through some tough times. So it's a very positive report. And I think what you'll see is when we look at the Cape, we're seeing the same thing. There's some oversupply, like course like Yarmouth, which is probably the course around us that's struggling the most. They have 45 holes. We're so lucky we only have 18 holes to take care of. And I know our members play a difficult game for tee times, but the course would never be in the conditions you're discussing if we had to spread the resources over 36 holes and try to fill 36 or even 45 holes like some of our competition.
Roman,
Yes.
to this point, a couple of weeks ago, on the Monday Mass Golf Association, they talked about an effort underway in the state of New York to revalue the golf courses as if they were developed with property.
Sure.
Yeah. The impact, if that passes, the implications for this are going to be enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, how fast can the golf courses close? Because people can't afford them anymore.
Right.
The question is, do we have any sense that that's got any legs? And if so, how widespread do you think that could go?
I think we're in a good position where I don't want to jump ahead of things because I was going to address some local statistics, but I think that we're in a good position on the Cape. The Cape is such a destination. Okay. We're in a different location entirely. Mm-hmm. We have challenges, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because I have a slide coming up where we discuss this locally. Okay. But there are challenges, but it's very optimistic. I think the report overall is optimistic.
Okay.
I'll jump to some more stats from this report. 23 million golfers played a golf course in 2018 with 19.5 million committed golfers. I put this slide in here just to say latent demand is measured by the number of non-golfers who are now interested in playing golf on a golf course hit a new high. The number of non-golfers who say they are very interested in playing golf increased to 14.9 million. up from 12.8 million in 2016. Much of this can be attributed to the growth of off-course participation. 32% of off-course participants are very interested in playing green grass golf. The reason I put that is that's really what we're talking about with the putting course that we have in mind. What they consider off-course participation is driving range. So a lot of the efforts we put into our range and some of our future endeavors are what they're talking about are really the entry-level efforts you need to make to engage golfers. And then as we keep going with the data, this shows what the demographics for the golf course golfers are in our country. It's funny, we look at our demographics and membership, where I think our average member is 67 years old or so. Age 65 plus is only 15% of golfers nationally, and 26% of golfers are 18 to 34, which is what we wanted to address a few years ago with our new young adult membership. The one graphic on here says young adult age group remains unchanged from 2016, contradicting claims that the sport continues to lose millennial golfers. So really strong indicators in all segments here. And then at the bottom it says off-course participants, which once again is the driving range, would be our driving range. It's a much more diverse group with many more juniors, young adults, women, and non-Caucasians than we see playing the golf course. I only got a few more of these to go, but once again, it'll say the beginners are even more diverse with many more women playing as beginners, non-Caucasian, and under the age 35 is a huge segment that's beginning golf right now. So the reason we want to really look at this is the people we want to engage. These are our next members. These are the people paying our greens fees. And then the number on the right is rounds played in millions for 2017. And it says, I put this in here because it just said, this, it's hard to read here. It hits their weather-related fluctuation of 2 to 3%. Mother Nature continues to have a predominant influence on the number of rounds being played, as we all know. And then the last slide from this report talks about growing the game from the ground up and all the endeavors to engage people at a young age, and saying that when you engage them at a young age, you engage them for life. And the thing I really liked about this is the 3 logos on here that they've mentioned most: First Tee Program, PGA Junior League, and Girls Golf. We are engaged in all 3 of those activities. And then the other one they mentioned is high school golf for both men and ladies, where we're engaged in that as well. So we're hitting all the bases as they're recommending. I'll lead that into something more local. There was a Cape Cod Municipal Golf Summit over the winter, February 27th. This was engaged by Yarmouth, who hired a expert, J.J. Keegan, who's a golf expert nationally. And they're really struggling with their golf courses and what to do with them. They've overbuilt, and so they're struggling. So they hired an outside consultant, and we all engaged in a summit together. And a lot of good came out of it. There were ideas that we're going to get together at the end of the season, but we're going to share information a little bit more and look into possibly joint marketing efforts to market the Cape, and to go through our chambers of commerce to market the Cape as a golf trail or something along those lines. But
And as a shoulder season destination.
yeah,
Yeah.
just to
Which we've
market it
talked about
together.
before.
There was an idea to say we all use the Chelsea system to use some of our electronic resources to have a Cape Cod Golf website that we all chip in to pay for, where golfers can go in and book at any golf course on the Cape from one website. So just ideas, but they were good ideas. It really showed that there's a lot of challenges. One thing J.J. Keegan said, point I want to make is, and he didn't look at us so much because I think because we were not overbuilt, we're in better shape than our competition. He said, you guys undervalue your golf by giving away memberships at less than $1,000. He valued the golf memberships on the Cape at $2,200 is what he thinks the proper value is. And as I move forward, Massachusetts minimum wage is up to $12 an hour starting January 1st. We have a new bylaw in this town that adjusted our wage scale, so that as of July 1st, our minimum wage will be $13 an hour, our lowest for seasonal pay. That's up $2 over last year, so that's going to have an impact on our overall budget and expenses. That's going to go up, and it says the minimum wage is going up to $15 an hour by January 2023. We're going to continue to see our expenses go up with seasonal wage, with wages in general. So that's one of the things our local competition is battling, is the expense of providing golf.
Robin, what was the figure that was used as $2,000 per round or per membership?
2,200.
He valued, it was quite complex, I don't want to go into the formula,
Well, just,
but he valued the membership on the Cape at $2,200 based on how many rounds are played and what the
ours is
expenses are.
about 36% of what that value is,
Yeah.
which means that it is a very, very valuable thing to have.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that somehow you should publish these data to show that the very positive things that have happened here. You know, the other thing, if I could just for a minute, I was asked to be on a television thing with all other people, you know, our different committees, and nobody was around, so I was there. And I was just asking about the golf committee and how things are going, and I gave some reports about different things, the veterans thing. And then McCaskill, one of the selectmen, said, and you're one of the few departments that makes money for the town. So, I mean, there's a significant economic impact for both the town and the members here, apparently, for, that data is good data to show people.
I agree.
It's a bargain, you know. Thank you.
I think another thing that's too important as well is, in that conference that you went to, that summit, I think it underscores, gentlemen, the fact that some of these management companies, they're looking at dollars and cents, and it's a wonderful thing. I believe that we are a self-contained entity. You know, we're municipally driven. These are our own employees, and they're invested in our product, and I think it shows.
Yep.
I think we're gonna see the memberships going up at our competition. They're gonna go up quite significantly. They're struggling to make ends meet and to keep up with the course conditions. And I know my old courses that I worked at in Barnesville, they're really struggling to put money into their clubhouses. Their clubhouses have major issues. They're taking resources from the golf course and addressing other issues. So they're going up quite significantly to maybe keep up with the minimum wage and the cost of doing business.
And I think history shows that as far as transferring revenue, it's going to, you know, they're going to increase tee times for non-residents and, you know, non-resident annual fee players to make that gap up. That's logical. So,
We'll see what happens. Yarmouth did have an RFP out for management company they had 3 actually RFPs out for different varieties of management companies, and I think they're gonna wait for this year to engage in anything, but there's changes going on.
good luck with that.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
keep moving. So winter operations highlights, I've got pictures that'll follow these bullet points. We entered into a new golf cart lease with Yamaha for 1 year with 2 one-year options. It's a new golf cart lease for the same fleet of carts. We got great terms on it. We did a RFP on that just to get through this year while we work out our electric issues.
Same revenue share,
Revenue share.
Revenue share, same thing.
same percentage?
No, much better percentage.
Oh, really?
83.25% stays with us as opposed to 74%. So
Period.
all 3 companies bid on it, and they blew the competition out of the water just because it was so much easier to leave the
Very
same fleet on
attractive.
it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent.
Pro shop renovation, phase 1 is complete. That included the new counter in the pro shop, new carpet, the information television in the hallway, and some painting in the hallway. I want to point out the efforts of a lot of staff members in helping to get that done. In order for us to be able to afford to do that, Sean Fernandez and his crew stripped the carpet. So as always, we have a lot of help. Pam Domos in our office took the lead on a lot of those things. She's very multi-talented, and I would like to single her out for recognition that she did a great job taking the lead in a lot of aspects of the pro shop renovation.
Yeah, the shop looks great.
I think so too. The shop looks great. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. On the golf course, cart paths on holes 6 and 12 were completed. I've got pictures to follow. Resodding of bunker faces on holes 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 14. And tree work on holes 3, 4, and 5. We also met Clement with myself and Kyle Harris from the Mass Golf about starting a first tee program at Cranberry Valley. They'd like to start their, I couldn't remember the number. Do you remember 8th location at Cranberry Valley?
Yeah.
And
think it
so
was.
their 8th location in the state would be at Cranberry Valley. What they're seeing, they've got their 2nd largest location is in Hyannis, but they're seeing no kids from this part of the Cape making the trek down there. So they think we can engage kids in our area at Cranberry Valley. One thing that I really have in mind is all this Monomoy Middle School enthusiasm for playing golf. I'd love to engage them in the First Tee program, which has such a nice itinerary and criteria to follow with the life lessons and it tied in with golf. It's really a good program. So we're going to engage them without possibly doing a trial run in the fall and possibly becoming an official First Tee home next year.
I think that it really underscores a trifecta of sorts in the sense of, you know, us being a magnet for junior golfers and developing the game and promoting the game. It fits in with all our strategic goals,
Yeah, I agree.
you know, enormously.
We could just back up quickly, okay? When I walked the course last week, I noticed the cart paths in 6 and 12, and I think they're great, okay? But I couldn't help but think about people's habits and whether they continue to drive on the 12th hole back where they used to drive and not come up on that cart. It's a thought that has
Yeah.
thought as I'm walking that, so I'm gonna watch it. and see.
We've got techniques. See, we're going to watch too. The thing we're looking for is we're not going to force people to get on the path early or anything like that. We'd love multiple entry points to the path. It's
Yep.
best for wear.
Okay.
If it turns out that one area is getting too much wear, we'll spread it out. But one of the nice things about having the cart path so far up and to the left, even if there's wear, it's wear that's out of play.
Sure.
And one of the real goals of that was when we did the data loggers, it showed our members are really, a good percentage of them are laying up into the throat next to the pond there.
Yep.
And that's right where the cart path was. So now that area can be a nice turf area to lay up and play on for the hole. And you're not engaging in the cart path or the wear at the entry point of the cart path.
Good point. Thanks.
Let's see, we booked the PGA Junior League Northeast Regionals one more time. That's the third time hosting in 5 years. That's not a comp giveaway to the PGA. They pay us $5,000 to host that event in September, and it's a great marketing event for the golf course. We created a member resources tab on the website with a document called Chelsea Explained on it that's been missing. So the members now all have a document they can go to on our website to really see all the ins and outs of how the Chelsea system works. Some Chelsea system upgrades included a window of opportunity, which is something we worked with Chelsea to design, which basically the general idea is if you submit for a tee time on Saturday, but you have an appointment at 2 o'clock, so you have to tee off by 9:30, you can put in your parameters, I can play between 6 and 9:30 only. And so if it has an opportunity based on your points to place you in that window, it'll place you. If not, you won't get placed. So there will be no incurring a point at a time you couldn't possibly play, which is a nice upgrade for the members. We saw a lot of that where people were getting placed in tee times where they had a conflict, so they'd carry the point for placement in a time they had no chance of playing in.
And the bottom line, Roman, is the fact that these tee time allocations have actually increased
Yeah, they have.
again.
Yeah.
So I think that's noteworthy.
We're going to see more, I'm anticipating more members than we've ever had or recently, and it should be our 4th year in a row of going up in membership and our 4th year in a row of going up in member tee times.
Excellent.
And then we also, this is not a big deal to our membership, but we transferred to the Las Vegas server, which is their preferred server from Chelsea. Basically, the impact it'll have on us is in hurricane season, our Chelsea system won't go down because last year it went down for a weekend, which was awful in September. So Las Vegas has no hurricanes and it's pretty stable. So should be a little bit. We're on the preferred server now. I presented our FY20 budget and it was for approval by the Board of Selectmen and FinCom. I did want to mention the discussion that occurred. As Clem mentioned, you know, I get a lot of the nods. Well, golf's one of the few departments that covers its expenses. But there was a discussion from one of the members of FinCom about the Chatham membership, and they wanted us to look into whether they should pay the same amount. And after a long discussion among the selectmen, and they determined it really wasn't the right place to discuss this, they decided I should bring back to the committee and say, if you guys choose to review and have a different recommendation for them for next year, they'd hear it in the rates and fees discussion time.
Was Pete Wall in the room?
You know, I will mention Pete Wall because, you know, it's way too early to discuss rates and fees for 2020.
Exactly.
But as I walked out of the room, Pete Wall did mention You know what, if you went up $25 on Chatham memberships, wouldn't everybody be happy? And $25 over a year or two, it'd be a nominal amount and it would separate them. I kind of agree. I think that's good advice. So let's discuss that in the fall.
Pete?
No, he said everything that happened.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Very good.
And then as far as spring, all greens, tees, and fairways have been aerated. So we're ahead of the game. A lot of our competition is still going through aeration. Once again, Sean Fernandez nailed it. We got great weather. We aerated, it rained right after, washed it all in. He came to me today and said the golf course is popping. They're going to be mowing like crazy. So we're set up for a great season. And we'll go through a few photos here.
Before you get to the photos, just for everyone, and I guess for the record, I think it's important to underscore the fact that the pro shop renovations, the new counter system, granite, the whole 9 yards, that's a result of us having a dedicated fund,
Yeah.
which we put in place for pro shop
Right.
renovations and activities, and people might not understand that. As far as the on-course improvements, those monies come out of our dedicated funds for on-course improvements.
Right.
So, you know, we're in a very envious position. We have that flexibility. We don't have to go to town meeting. You know, we're self-sufficient.
But I wasn't in the room, but I heard someone who was there was saying that some of the FinCom folk were asking about our balances and things.
Yeah.
And they were concerned that it was some kind of a precursor, that because our role has changed as a golf committee, that we're now just advisory to the selectmen. We used to make decisions about these things. And it was setting up something so that the monies that we have in these, we no longer control. And so I think we have to pay attention to that. We have a different role now. We're advisory to make recommendations on policy to the selectmen. And the thing that concerned me, and I brought it to this fellow's attention, is the Emerson College case, where, you know, the Supreme Judicial Court said that any excess funds for a service provided by a municipality that is excess of what it costs to provide the service is essentially a tax. And so therefore it has to be treated as a tax. And so we faced this maybe 8 or 10 years ago when we took over here, and suddenly there's a $130,000 charge against the budget and then after that 5 years of $80,000 for in lieu of taxes kinds of things. And so I think we need to pay attention to that. It's wonderful for you to have this resource, and it's very positive because it improves the game and improves the resource here. But if there's any effort to try to access those funds, that could be illegal in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, but I can tell you that, you know,
Good point, Tom.
that's my point,
I mean, I haven't heard any threat to those
No,
at all, but.
no.
Yeah, but what?
I haven't heard any threat to those.
Yeah, no, it was someone who was at the meeting who said, you know, that this might be the first step in an effort to try to get access to those funds for other town business. And you can understand why people would want to do that, but we have tried to set up that so that it is used for the golf course and to improve the resource and the game of golf, so.
But aren't the funds treated separately from your budget, Roman?
They are, yeah,
They
the
are.
dedicated
Yeah.
fund money
Yeah.
is
And
separate.
That's the
think-
point, Jack, that's
yeah.
the point, that they are treated separately from the budget.
But I think, Tom, with the change, the change of the guard in a sense, there are new people on the finance committee and so on. I'm not sure they're totally aware of how the system works per se.
Yeah, I'm not accusing anybody, I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
I heard this, and of course, but there is a history in municipal law in Massachusetts against folks dipping in and trying to use certain funds for things, for purposes other than what the money was raised for, that's all.
Exactly.
That's all.
Pete, you had a comment?
Slim, I was at the meeting too.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly who it was, but I believe it was a new member of the finance committee.
Yeah.
And it sounded like they wanted to find out how much excess was in each one of our funds with the possibility of grabbing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't the exact words, but that's the
Yeah.
tone of the
Yeah.
question.
That's what I'm.
Well,
Interesting, yeah.
It's good to be
Yeah.
on guard.
Yeah.
We'll be diligent. We're good stewards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But,
Just a thought.
I mean, even if you consider the if your funds aren't part of your budget, the course is still contributing some amount of money that always seems to be mystical as far as expenses. Revenue is more than expenses.
Right.
Isn't that
There's
true?
indirect costs. They did, when I first came on board, they did an indirect cost study that said we're revenue neutral, I think.
Yeah.
It is a mystical number. It's around $300,000. It pays for a lot of the employment benefits and things like that. Attorney fees, such as, I don't ever get in a direct accounting of it, but
And it may be
they
up,
tell us each year we're revenue neutral.
and in that revenue neutral figure, it could even approach
Uh,
385,000
But Clem,
plus.
you know, for years, Jack, we got this, we got it. We got the indirect costs, and we would work on the budget during the winter. And in other words, we're not involved anymore. You take care of it, which is fine. I'm not being critical. But we don't really know how much extra money is put into some other, and in fact, because it is not public, may mean that it is, in fact, in violation of that Emerson College concept. But when I raised the issue some years ago, someone said, but the Department of Revenue has approved it. So, but there were different people in charge in those days, and so, you know, it's just a thought. Got to be vigilant about this.
Pete, thank you. Roman?
Got some photos of items I discussed. This is the pro shop after we scraped the carpet off the floor on the left, and then when the new counter was installed on the right. And here it is as it stands today. This is our new information television in the hallway. It runs a PowerPoint presentation on a loop, so we update that weekly. Every week we're going to have new events we're updating on that. I reached out to both Ron Leiter and Bob Miller to let them know it's a resource for them as well. If they have anything to include, we'd be happy to include it.
Who does that? Who manages that?
I do that.
Yeah, you do that?
Yep.
It's, at Cape Cod National, that's probably the most popular thing within our clubhouse renovation, which was over $1 million, and I think it's terrific.
It's
Does
funny,
he-
I was working on it on Saturday, and so I had to turn off the PowerPoint presentation while I was updating it. And so it's just for the heck of it, I put the masters on it. And Ron Leiter came running to me and said, turn it off, they're not coming in the barn.
But if you get a chance, I've been teasing Roman about giving this to us or making it public. He has a clip of the demolition of the carp barn. That's the only thing I wanted to see this winter, and I had to see it on videotape, but at least it's preserved.
We played it for 2 straight weeks.
I
Everybody
know.
saw
I
it.
loved every minute of it.
Okay, here's some photos of Hole 6 path. On the left is where it just shows the T intersection, and the picture on the right is looking from the fairway back towards the T. I'm excited by this. I give kudos to Sean Fernandez because, you know, where we had trouble with the turnaround on hole 12, Sean, you know, you live and you learn. He wrote very specific specs to the
Real wide.
contractor this time. We got a great turnaround.
Make it wide.
How
They
does-
nailed it.
How does that look down there on 12, the 12T turnaround?
I looked
It's
left.
fine
I
now.
went left.
Is it okay?
It's fine.
Good.
I'm excited. I think it should be a good help for pace of play.
Oh, yeah.
And then as we were talking about, here's the whole 12 car path. Hard to get a good sense of it, but the picture on the right shows how far off to the left side of the hole it is.
Hence my
It's
comment.
really out of play. This, once again, both these car paths follow the Mark Mundrum car path plan that we engaged before my time here.
Right,
So we're following Mark's overall plan for the golf course.
Beautiful.
The best thing, the picture on the right is hard to see up near the green. Best thing when you look near the green, you don't see a car path. That's one of the major improvements is that turf should all be nice and playable.
Can I mention too, Roman, that with completion of this 12th hole initiative, this opens the door to relocation, subtle relocation of the 12th tee, and also a cart path to the left of number 10. So that, again, when you talk about enhancements of pace of play, that should be
You mean
tremendous
you
benefit.
meant relocation to the 13th tee, not the
Yeah.
12th.
that's what
You
I
said
meant.
12th.
Sorry, 13 tee.
13, yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. I think that hole 10 car path is on our FY20 plan.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But it's on along the side, on the
Along
left.
the
Up on
side,
the left side,
yeah,
up in the
yeah.
tree line.
Some guy told me if you put it across the fairway, it would be sacrilegious.
Yeah, it won't be in the fairway. So here's a photo of our website, and it's a little hard to see, I just wanted to show, is my mouse on there? No. This is, we've got the new member resources tab, which is the second tab in. That's new for members. And I'll click on over, and this is the new document, which is 4 pages long. This is just the top document, Chelsea Explained, which is a big help to us, because last year, this has been something we've wanted to put on the website. Last year, whenever new prospective members came into the pro shop, and asked about how our tee times were allocated, we had to take them aside and have a 10-minute conversation with them. Now we say, go to the website, and if you have any questions, let us know. And then a snapshot of membership sales and bookings as of 4/11. It's very encouraging. One thing I didn't put on here was for our membership contest, which ended on March 15th. We had I think we had the exact same numbers we had last year, 330 renewals, which is
Wow, that's
fantastic.
great.
As of 4/11, we were up to 465 membership renewals.
And last year's figure was what?
I didn't have a historic
okay.
comparison for the 11th of the month, but for the timing of the membership contest, which was the 15th of March, we were exactly the same.
Oh, really?
We have 23 new Harwich members already this year,
Wow.
12 new Chatham members, 3 new Eastham and Orleans members, and 2 new non-resident members. Once again, I do the direct email, the preseason promoting our memberships, and we target those communities that have special deals at Cranberry Valley, which are Eastham, Orleans, Chatham. So I think we keep targeting those with our marketing campaign. The numbers keep coming in.
I think it's important too to mention, if memory serves me correctly, when we started out with the Chatham Initiative, we're talking about a mere 40 players. And
Right.
today, I believe it's 160 plus.
I think for last year, we were 160.
So the point is, that is a large component of our revenue generated through our annual fee. Players, and an important component, obviously. So it has economic implications, to say the least. Tom?
But our things come full circle, because the night of that vote, the vote was 2-2. 2 for, 2 against, so it failed. The Chatham was failed. And I happened to bump into a selectman on the way out, and I mentioned to him, and that night the selectman voted 5-0 to include Chatham as at the Harwich rate. And I just heard tonight that they now want to push it back on us and to decide whether it's
Bring
appropriate.
them the recommendation. They said
Everything
bring
goes
them the
full
recommendation.
circle.
I'm all for the Chatham members. For the most part, when we see them, they're active. They play in sweeps. They play in the ladies' league.
They're great
Um,
members.
They're just like our Harwich members. They're active. So I wouldn't want to do anything to spurn them. And then numbers still, we have 60 hotel bookings ranging from 4 to 32 players per booking. And then we have advanced reservations that are also strong, with 99 bookings confirmed for May, June, and September as the busiest months. So all indicators are very positive.
Fantastic.
I don't have exact historical comparison for the middle of the month, but at next month's meeting, I could have for the end of April numbers, so we get a good snapshot. But all indicators are very positive.
Roman, on the hotel bookings, there were a couple of things that I recall we talked about. One of them was to reinforce the notion of don't come in and drink in the parking lot.
Right,
Number 2 was encourage them to to eat in the restaurant,
right.
as opposed to going back to the hotel, although we know they tend to package those things together.
Yeah.
In the communication to the hotels, was any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, we have a few hotels we work with very closely. As you just mentioned, John, they're really good about it. They offer their golfers all kinds of deals to come back and eat with us. They want to keep the money in-house.
Sure.
So it's a little difficult to deal with
Okay.
them on that level. What we do is we try to lay the red carpet out for them when they come and try to engage them in that way. So
Okay,
I
thanks.
think Ron would tell you he sees a lot of hotel action.
Yeah.
Whether they stay after, I don't know, but while they're there, they're buying breakfast sandwiches. They're first requesting the beverage cart.
Good.
They're some of our better customers.
If I could just say something, so from a mendicant perspective, they're using Cranberry to improve their own business position.
Right,
And therefore bring in more money, right?
right.
Be interesting if they got together and said, we're going to have a fund that we donate to help the kids golfers here buy clubs and do other things and celebrate them. I mean, In other words, the Cranberry Valley is a municipality owned by the town, but in fact, its proximity and its value enhances their value to bring in clients.
Sure.
So there's a business relationship here, and it wouldn't be outrageous to say to them, you know, every year, could you throw in a couple of grand, and we'll just make sure that the golf committee at the town, at the, you know, the high school, just a thought. And your
Well,
idea about the middle school, I mean, it's just a nice thing to do, and it's a community, it enhances the community in my mind.
It's a great idea. It's really cutthroat to get these groups. And, you know, we're talking mostly we're not talking about local hotels, we're talking about the Strip in Yarmouth, the Bayside, the Heritage House on downtown in Hyannis. And they go to all the courses on the Cape. And when the golfer doesn't request to say specifically Cranberry Valley, they're gonna send them to the place where they get the best deal, and so they can have the largest markup. So they're in it to make as much money as they can, and they're in a tough business environment too. So I think it'd be hard to get any more out of them. In fact, we saw this relationship and these bookings increase when we added our hotel rate for the off-season weekdays. In the off-season, we offer them a special rate now, and we see more and more activity from them, just because it gives them an opportunity to make a few more dollars.
Is the rate lower than the current rack rate?
Yeah, it is, it is. I can't remember how much, I think it's $10 less. But the one thing that's good about it, Jack, is it's a guaranteed cart. The hotels are all mandatory cart involved, so I believe it's $10 better than you'd get off the street, but it's only off-season, midweek, and it's the guaranteed cart fee.
And is it payable unless the course is closed?
Yes. Yep. The best thing, the hotels are really easy to deal with as far as billing goes, because it's all the accounts receivable through our accounting office, and the hotels collect their money in advance, so we get the voucher. The tee times are guaranteed. They're our most guaranteed tee times, so we get paid for those regardless. And if the course is closed, it's the one instance where we collect the greens fee still, and we issue rain checks. Okay, that's all I had for that side of things.
Okay. Roman, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
One quick question, because you probably have addressed it in one way or another. There's significant rule changes this year that are going to impact, hopefully in a positive way, the pace of play in particular. Is there a mechanism that you've created that will communicate that to members? And
Yeah, well, I haven't been directly involved in it, but, you know, Dick Fagan, our head pro,
Yeah.
deals directly with the leagues. And I know he's talking to Bob Plinus with the sweeps and the ladies' leagues as well about recommending a fixed flag. I mean, that's one thing with our leagues we're recommending, and I know I saw in the men's communication, they're recommending the same thing. We'd love to see the flag stay in the hole.
Yeah.
The one thing that could be a negative with the new flag rules are if if you have a foursome out there, 2 people like it in, 2 people like it out, and it just keeps going in and out, in and out, in and out. That didn't make any progress. So I like the fixed flag myself, but we're not going to make any policy changes for the golf course to force people to keep the flag in or anything like that. But we are working with our leagues for better pace of play.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay.
Robin, are you gonna deal with it about the status of the electrical?
Yep, I think that's next.
It's coming up. Under old business, it seems like 10,000 years ago, our capital project update. And although there've been significant gains, there still are some things that Roman will allude to. So, Roman,
Okay.
thanks.
So I'm going to go through a list right here. That's the capital project. I'll go through what we've completed so far, which is the building has been completed, removal of the fuel tank, demo of the old cart barn. The electric service was removed from the old cart barn and the meter was moved to the new barn. And the paving of the parking lot and cart path was completed. It will be lined this Friday, either this Thursday or Friday. I think it's Thursday overnight.
Electrical service that you put to the new cart barn
Mm-hmm.
is consistent with requirements from Eversource, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
not for the, as far as what's gonna handle our solar and our electric cards.
Right.
But yes, Eversource is the one that moved the meter. They moved the
They
meter
did,
over.
they did, okay, great, okay.
Was there any response to the attorney's letter to Eversource that you had showed us?
No, nothing, so what we're doing, and I've got that next on in the works, we really turned our attention to addressing the electrical issue, well, to get three-phase power to the building
Yeah.
through our solar project. And we put out an RFP over the winter through CVEC, so CVEC actually ran the RFP, and they interviewed the companies, and they had, I think Clem, you were there when
Yeah.
they came and viewed the property. They're looking at putting solar panels on both the roof of the cart barn and the ground mounts between the cart barn and the maintenance area. And it was very exciting. We had a number of respondents to that RFP. And I just heard from CVEC this morning that they selected a candidate, Green Skies. The selection letter was sent out today that they've been selected for the project. What happens next is we go into negotiations, and basically they allocate $10,000 for the electrical infrastructure that they need to address on a property. We know that we have much more than $10,000 worth of infrastructure upgrade that's required. So we're gonna go into negotiation with them to see how that's gonna impact what they bid on. And they were all very aware of the situation. I made sure they all were provided with the electrical plan that Eversource provided us with. They seemed to, Clem, you discussed this with them when they were on site too. They do this stuff all the time. They were not fazed by our electrical barriers.
It was really interesting. Number one, the fact that we had so many people respond was encouraging, to say the least. And when I brought up,
Again, how many responded?
For between the roof and the ground mounts, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And the company Green Skies that was selected, CVEC told me they have worked with them in the past on other phases of the CVEC projects.
And are the solar panels, where are they manufactured? In
I don't know.
China? China or the United States?
I'm not sure.
regardless of, the manufacturing origin, they were very specific about the fact that it will be state-of-the-art technology as far as the panels are concerned. This next generation, it's extraordinary, the amount of control. Roman and/or Sean will have that capability, panel by panel,
I don't want to question the process, but I've heard that there's a difference in quality
Sure.
of those that are made abroad versus those that are made domestically.
Basically,
I've been told.
the broad overview I've gotten, and once again, I wasn't involved in all the negotiations up to this point. Sean Libby, the town's facility manager, is the one that actually interviewed all the companies for all the properties in Harwich, and the town administrator interviewed them as well. So they invited me in to discuss how the meetings have been going, but they've been directly dealing with them. In general, the general overview of what it means to us is it's going to be a power purchase agreement where we're just going to have a net meter. And the best case scenario, based on once we tackle our electric issues, is we're going to go 20 years with no electric bill, is generally our benefit, at no cost to us other than what this negotiation is to upgrade the electrical system. And Sean Livy, who once again has been dealing with them on the ground level, said that in these negotiations, there may be, out of our project budget, we may need to come up with, I know we had $50,000 allocated to the electrical upgrade. We may need to pay our $50,000 towards them matching us for the electrical upgrade. We'll see. But the outcome at the end of the day is a 20-year agreement where we should see pretty much no electric bill. That's our outcome, and at no cost other than this electrical upgrade initially.
But I think, as far as the record's concerned too, I think it's important to share the fact that the town administrator's leadership in engaging CVEC and Liz Argo and her work really is, was a great surprise to me personally, because if you remember, we had discussed going, more one-on-one out into the,
You're right. The town administrator turned his attention to this was the way to fix our electrical issues, and it turns out to be, so far it looks like it is the way.
And I was just anecdotally, when I engaged those representatives here on site, when I mentioned Eversource, they were very glib. They said, they're that way with everybody. Don't worry about it. Which, it's Cape Cod, so I am going to worry about it. But, hopefully, things will go our way. It's been a little longer process, certainly, but in the end, if we come out with a zero-sum game, that's a good thing. Good thing for the town.
I agree.
And we're gonna have gas carts for 1 year and maybe 2, we don't know.
We've got a one-year lease,
Hopefully
and then
one.
we've
Right,
got
and
options.
an
Hopefully
option for
one.
the second. I mean, I was worried about the golf game, you don't want to affect the golf game.
Oh, no.
Roma, if I could just loop back for one point you made earlier, and that is paving parking lot and cart path. Could you give us a little bit more detail as to what's going to happen with the cart path, for example, from the 18th hole and then back up? You talked
Sure.
about Bluestone, you talked about paving,
Yeah.
and also signage. So,
Yep.
because people are going to, they're used to going up the hill and around the,
Sure.
okay?
No, absolutely. So what we're gonna do is, I've got a slide coming up that shows the new car path behind the car barn. A date around Memorial Day is when we'll start what we have planned to start directing the traffic behind the car barn and out into the parking lot.
Right.
We need to deal with the town's conservation agent to see what we can put on that car path that's in an environmental zone. We could not pave the area behind the clubhouse that goes past that vernal pool.
Okay.
So all indications are we're gonna be able to lay down bluestone. So we're gonna have signage right after 18, pointing people this direction to return your clubs to your car, this direction for lunch at the hot stove. And we've got a new parking area designed where people can go left and go the traditional way around the building and park on what would be the south side of the clubhouse. Sean Fernandez is creating a parking area there where they can turn in towards the flower beds there and park. We worked that out with Ron Leidner. Part of his lease agreement was he would get to help design a parking area for himself.
So when people bring the carts up the hill behind the cart barn,
Right.
then there's a little open area there, okay,
Right.
before you enter the cart barn. People will be able to drive from there to their cars?
Yes.
Okay.
And then when they stripe the parking lot, they're gonna stripe the area in front of the cart barn. It's gonna be striped for no parking, but it's gonna say cart return on the ground when they stripe it. And so that's where people will then put their carts when they're done with them, is they'll put them right in front of the building. Our staff will then take them and take them to the wash area you just mentioned.
And will the lines, okay, that are between the cart barn, this is parking lines, okay, between the cart barn and the clubhouse, will they be set at a diagonal? I noticed the
Yes.
cars were all parked straight in 90 degrees.
Oh,
And
diagonal.
The day I was there, they were all like straight in, okay?
You mean with
They
no
weren't
lines on
diagonal.
the ground?
They were with the no lines.
Yeah.
I said,
It's
I hope
been-
that they
it's
put
been a-
diagonal.
Yeah.
It's been a free-for-all with no lines.
Yeah.
If you notice, we had to put out cones and we have our staff starting each line to hopefully have people following suit, but it snakes its way down.
Okay.
But no, we're following the cart path design that was designed by our landscape architect,
Good.
Mike Curadosi, and it's for diagonal lines.
Great, thanks.
Roman, just one,
I'm sorry, Jack.
2 questions. The relocation of the gas, of the fuel tank,
Fuel tank.
is that gonna impact your ability to get gas for the carts?
It's
Where
not
did you
gonna,
put the
it's not gonna be convenient as it's been in the past. It's being relocated down to the maintenance area. It's gonna work. We've already discussed how we're gonna work it out. It's funny, these carts don't use a ton of fuel, and one full tank gets a lot of rounds in. So, it's gonna take some staff man-hours to go down to maintenance, bring them up where they used to be right at the parking location. So that's less convenient
Yeah.
in this gap year between electric cars.
And when they park in the area for the hot stove, they'll still go back by the path behind they won't come up by the 10th tee?
No, we'll probably let at that point, they'll have passed the 10th tee, because they're gonna park right pulling into the hot stove, like pointing at the porch.
Yep.
They can just continue on to the parking lot from there.
Oh,
We're not gonna be too heavy-handed in directing things. In fact, as we discussed it, and when we first start, we're gonna put signage up. It's gonna be mostly, we're gonna encourage people to use the path behind. We're gonna wait and see how it works, really. We want our guests to follow the signage and do things the right way. Our members, I'm sure, are gonna continue to walk up the way they used to walk with their push carts. That's okay, because I know push carts don't go well over Bluestone and things like that. So we're not gonna be too heavy-handed in dealing with that. We're gonna wait and see how it works out. But the goal is to direct the traffic away from the 10th tee. And we're gonna try our best to do that.
One quick question, not to belabor the point, but along with the diagonal scoring and lining of the parking lot, because it's an insurancing issue, the fact that we have golf carts operating in the midst of vehicle traffic, is there any plan, I would like to think so, that sort of like the crosswalk diagonal demarcation that you have, is there going to be a lane specific to, for example, our staff cart parking you know, in other words, when they come out of the barn, is there any pattern that?
No, we
can-
weren't gonna put a pattern out. I'm
Okay.
trying to picture what you're saying. If we had, you know, I know some grocery store parking lots have that island in the middle that has a walkway on it or has
Yeah.
we don't have the room to do anything like that. We discussed
I
that.
just wondered.
But, no, we don't have any crosswalks or anything. What we are gonna have with the striping is lines telling people which direction to drive in, so the south side will be going towards the clubhouse, the north side will be coming away from the clubhouse, just in accordance with
Good
the
enough.
lines on the parking
Good
lot.
Tom,
And my
When it's
assumption-
all, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
When it's all done, the parking, what's the net gain or loss in terms of number of spaces available?
I believe the gain so far is 15 spots gained, and when we continue to build an extra hot stove parking, it'll be up to 18.
Okay, and there'll be more handicapped up near the front for golfers?
The handicapped will remain. I
Okay,
think we have more than enough
Okay,
handicap.
good, good. Okay.
excellent. John?
My assumption is there was no need for remediation of the soil underneath where the gas tank was, correct?
That's correct.
Just wanted to check, okay.
And we had the fire inspector involved in each step of their moving the tank and in the location of the new pad to make sure we're meeting all requirements.
All questions I get asked walking down the street.
Our town administrator worked in a town that had a problem with that, where they need to remediate, and it took a $10,000 moving of the tank. It cost him, I think he said $125,000. So he's been on our case about that one to
Excellent
make sure it was
question.
correct, correctly done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let me keep
Now
going
that
here.
we've parked
So,
for a conversation,
Car Barn Electric, which is, you know, we're operating the shell of the building right now that has no lights or electric garage doors. Our town facility manager, Sean Levy, has procured electric services from an electrician who has promised us the date of May 10th. We'll have electricity and garage doors working in there by May 10th.
and just as an add-on too, I mean, I imagine it will eventually happen, but if you remember, gentlemen, we discussed, because I think this is important, we had a lot of requests, lighting in the parking lot, not just for security reasons, but,
So what he's gonna install is floodlights that go out to the two staff areas on the east and west side. But once we get the three-phase power, we're gonna do larger floodlights off the building into the parking lot. And one thing we discussed is, we don't believe we're gonna have the money for it in this project budget. We can always look back in the future and add some solar posts in the parking lot if we feel the need.
yeah,
But the parking lot will be more lighted than it's ever been,
Yeah.
based on the floodlights that go off the building.
excellent.
And then, opportunities, let me see, where was I? And then the landscaping, which is in the works around the cart barn, and island, where the previous cart barn was. By July 4th, we'll have that area done. One thing that we're so lucky to have such good staff, Sean Fernandez is gonna really take the lead on that project from now till the 4th of July, running the, landscaping project following our Michael Cardosi landscape plan around the building and in that island, building a wall,
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
the stairs that go up, getting the lighting done, and he's gonna turn over the golf course operations to his assistant, Rob Donovan.
Nice.
So Sean's gonna be on top of that and getting that done.
So those evergreens, the existing evergreens, gentlemen, you know, you remember, they're gonna be relocated to the number 6 hole to mitigate that.
Yeah, so I believe we have 7 of them. 4 of them are gonna be off the left side of hole 6, to help mitigate the problem with the gentleman that's having the golf balls on his property. And 3 of them are gonna be put behind the 9th green to help shield the
Oh, beautiful.
ball area, range area.
Remember we had talked about that? He's also cut down a number of those stumps that, for aesthetic
Speaking of
reasons.
that guy on 6, does he still have a suit or?
Yeah, so there's been a ton of time and discussion on him. His lawyer has determined, let's wait and see. So we've taken a lot of action as far as planting some shrubs by his property, putting signage up, and then our final effort is gonna be relocating the shrubs that Clem mentioned to the left part of the tee, knock down things over there. He's been demanding a net, and we don't really wanna put a net up, so his lawyer said, let's wait and see how our efforts go. And both the town attorney and the town's insurance company have both said, we feel like our efforts have been complete.
I heard you say twice, see how things go.
Yeah.
Who's gonna monitor it and how?
Well,
You know, 6 golf balls came on my property on last Tuesday. Who can prove it?
I think legitimately we're gonna see some improvement, and if he determines it's been improvement or not, it'll really be up to him to see if he thinks our efforts created some form of improvement.
Okay.
It'll be up to him to see if he wants to continue to fight.
Signage, don't hit a ball this way.
So still to come, lighting and security, that'll come with the three-phase power that's part of the solar project with CVAC. Well, I'm hoping to have dates for that for next meeting, once we enter into negotiations with the company there.
Thanks, Ron.
The electric bid to install outlets for the electrical car chargers and have a design. I'm meeting with Chris Clark Friday. That's gonna be one of the things we discussed, is when to go out to bid on the electric plan for installing the car chargers, or the outlets for the car chargers. And then the landscape hardscape for the center circle, Sean Fernandez is gonna take that up the fall of 2019. And the washdown pad, he's working with UMass, that's secondary. He's gonna take care of the landscaping stuff first. On hold indefinitely is the reskinning of the maintenance building. The numbers came in, the bids we got from JJ Cardosi when he was on site, and we discussed the project with him, reskinning the building. It turns out we didn't dedicate enough money to it to accomplish what we wanted to, and we're probably not gonna have the money in this current project budget to do what we want to do. What they recommended was putting in a knee wall like we have in the car barn to help mitigate some water problems that they're having in the old building. And it turns out there's a lot of removal that needs to occur before they can reskin. That's a more expensive job than we thought it would be. So that's on hold to wait and see. Once we accomplish everything else mentioned in the project, let's see what's left in the budget to do it.
There was some discussion a number of meetings ago regarding naming that building at some point. I'm just curious as to where that stands, if anywhere.
I haven't been doing anything on that. I know Tom recommended that. I think it's a great idea. The one thing that I am getting from the town administrator is when originally we wanted to have a grand opening of the building this year,
Yeah.
he's really adamant, and I agree totally with him, is if we have a grand opening and we're not completed yet, that gives a wrong impression.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I don't think dedicating it or having any kind of opening is appropriate until it's done.
So we
I
can
agree.
couple that with that, when they have that
Yeah,
official
we'll have
grand
time,
opening.
we'll have time.
Good, okay, great, thanks.
And then
Yeah,
I-
John?
Roman, how, do you know how you're doing on the budget versus 1.2 million?
Yeah,
That's
that's the specific meeting I'm having on Friday with Chris Clark, the town administrator. We saved some money with the solar, basically, a lot of it's fluid right now, because what the plan with CVAC was, originally we had 214,000 dedicated to the solar project to purchase the solar panels. We brought that down to 114 when the building was over budget, and now it looked like we may be down to 0 for the solar side. All of a sudden now we may have to match them with some number to upgrade the three-phase. I don't know yet. That's gonna be negotiated. The paving of the parking lot, we originally had, I think, 97,000, does that sound right, Clem? For the
Yeah.
paving of the parking lot. We got a more up-to-date quote last year where it was down to 79,000. And the highway department just did the parking lot and said, whoops, it took more material than we thought, 120,000. So they're gonna absorb it down to about $105,000. We'll see, it's all very fluid. So on Friday, I have a meeting with the town administrator to discuss exactly where we are on that. But I think we're pretty close to on number.
I think it's important to mention too,
Can anybody hear me?
yeah, we've got you, John.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes. We have someone,
I got a question in terms of, I apologize because I'm having a difficult time hearing.
Yeah.
But, and I hope this was answered already. But with Eversource, is there any timetable for us to get that resolved in terms of getting the main electrical configuration done with the cut barn?
Yeah, John, I gave a talk about where we stand with the solar component of the project with CVAC, and the electrical upgrade for three-phase power is going to be handled through that the RFP with CVAC. We're about to enter into negotiations through the town administrator with the company that was selected through CVAC for the solar component, and we're going to negotiate on exactly how much the town will have to pay to upgrade to three-phase power.
okay? I just want to make a point of thanking a town highway, because I don't think people realize, at the inception of this project, one of the concepts that drove the whole initiative, its cost effectiveness, was the fact that we'd engage other town departments. They have done an extraordinary job. And it's not just the parking lot, because that's easy to see, but all the landscaping in and around the building that's on the downside, I'll call it, toward Sean's building, that was done by town highway. And I don't, it's
I agree, they've been
one person's
fantastic.
assessment. I think it's just commendable.
They've
Lynn
been great to
Cooper
work with, yeah.
and his staff, I mean, extraordinary.
They've been very helpful, and it has been very cost-effective, and I'd throw into that Sean Fernandez, too. His relationships with the town made that very easy,
Yeah.
because he does a lot for the other town departments.
I mean, if we had to farm that out with wage scale,
Yeah.
uh,
Double it.
you could double the number.
I suggest that when this is done, no matter who's on the golf committee, we should memorialize it in writing and thank them publicly for the contribution, because it not only saved money for the town, but it integrated, these town services in ways that were extraordinary. So I think,
Yeah.
at some point, we should memorialize it and thank them from our perspective.
I noticed down at the new Saquatucket Harbor, there's a nice plaque, and I was thinking about, your point. And they do reference, different people that were involved. That's something we might
The
think
right
about.
thing to do, I think
Yeah.
we should think about doing that, yeah.
Another question, John?
Well, I understand that the communication with TVAC is going to somehow help this electrical configuration, but from what I understood, I thought it was going to be a $200,000 charge that Eversource is looking from the town to make the main electrical configuration. Now, that was to the clubhouse as well as to the cot barn, am I correct in that?
Yeah, you will.
Well, initially, but now that is being negotiated with the party that's gotten the nod from the town. So we'll have to,
Yeah, but they're not going to pay $200,000, are they?
That's the next stage of negotiations with them. They entered into it, John, with the copy of the electrical infrastructure upgrade that needed to happen. We made sure we provided them with the Eversource's plan. So they entered into it knowing it. They visited the site, and Clem and I told them directly what was required. So they are planning to absorb some form of it. We're going to negotiate how much.
Okay, so have the lawyers continued the negotiation with Eversource, or they dropped that whole thing?
This is the route we're pursuing currently with Eversource.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is, here it is in April, and, I know we have a little bit of leeway with the gas cards for another year, but I mean, I'd hate to be in the same position next year, and because the electrical cards is the whole purpose behind the project.
exactly. It's a point well taken. We'll have to see,
The
we
other
just,
question I have is, what are we gonna do with the wash pad?
good question.
Wash pad.
Yeah.
Wash pad?
Yeah, the washdown pad currently, we're addressing the issues of the landscaping, hardscaping first before we do the washdown pad. Sean Fernandez is working with UMass. He said that he's engaged them on a design, but they haven't come through with the design yet. But
Okay,
he's not ready to act on that. He's prioritized the landscaping side of things first.
thank you, John. Okay.
I got a few photos here. I know everybody's probably seen
Yeah.
photos of, here's the car path coming up behind the building here. Highway Department this upcoming week is gonna build the fence on the side. You see the post for?
I had visions of people driving off that edge there.
We talked a lot about it, and so nobody's going that way until we're ready for them. Don't worry.
Chain link.
No change.
Electrified.
We're hoping that they're gonna be looking on the right there at our nice new solar field. And then,
Oh, yeah.
here's the washdown area that the golfers all come through. On the left post there, you can see our hose which taps right into the golf course's irrigation system for washing down carts.
Excellent, I saw that
Great.
the other day.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, moving right on to new business. Once again, Cranberry Valley will host a veterans event, which has been very, very successful under the tutelage of Tom Johnson and his efforts. So, Tom?
Yeah, it's going to be May 6th. It's a Monday. And the Mid-Cape Men's Club is affiliated and blended in, which is absolutely wonderful.
Yep.
It's only 3 weeks away. And I talked to Dick Fagan today, and I also talked to Ron. Dick is, there's two fellows that donate the essence of the meal. One's cod, one's meat. The cod fellow's already committed. The other fellow's yet to be contacted, but they don't think there'll be a problem. And Dick is going to contact the high school to have the chorus come down and sing the Star Spangled Banner at the flagpole. So I think I'm going to again get in touch with Cape Cod 5. Last year they donated red shirts with the flag for
Nice.
everyone that played. And what else? We just need a number. There's only about 7 people that have signed up so far, so we need to publicize it and tell them we need to get the numbers for the meal and other kinds of things. So it's important that those that are going to play let us know early.
Have the men's and ladies groups been
Can you
engaged?
include that on your,
Yes,
this
It's on there.
whiteboard? Oh,
It's
it
on
is
there.
It's on there, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But just a reminder to people that, if they're going to do it, we need to get numbers as early as possible.
it is. We traditionally have late signups, and this isn't abnormal that we're light on signups right now. I'll continue to push it. I'll send an email out to the membership, and
Yes, can you do
I
that?
expect to see bigger numbers than we had last year with the Mid-Cape Men's
I
Club
think
involved.
so, yeah.
But we will have to bang the drum.
Tom, is that it?
Yeah, that's really it
Oh,
with
There's
the,
one last thing.
yeah.
You have to model the new hat.
There's a new hat, yeah. We're ready for combat.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, will you be
Right.
at the men's club luncheon, the Mid-Cape Men's Club luncheon on Thursday?
No, I'm not going. I
Okay, then
can't go this year.
why don't I contact Joe Barry, okay, to make sure that,
Yes,
we push on that,
good
okay?
point.
Because we're joining forces with
Yes,
this,
yes.
in lieu of another tournament which we would have held that day.
Mike's already sent something out about that, Mike Chapman.
He has, but I figured on Thursday it'd be good to remind people.
That's a
Ping,
good
ping,
point,
ping.
John. Thank you for doing that. Yes, that's right, yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Roman was in contact with me in the merry month of March, and I came back from sunny Puerto Rico to engage in a conversation with our planning board regarding affordable housing in the town of Harwich. And I'd like to think I did an adequate job, I hope, in terms, because Roman had a fever and
I was delirious.
it was tough sledding, but basically, I let the planning board know that in our infinite wisdom as good stewards of the Cranberry Valley property, that we had a land use policy that we had passed unanimously, so it was good ammunition to throw their way. They referenced the fact that 18 years ago, the town of Harwich voted that land that actually is under our domain, they had decided would be good for use as affordable housing. So basically what they've asked us to consider is a parcel that will consist of roughly 2.5 acres at the extreme end of, if you remember the geographic plot that we had, we have about 7 or 8 acres of land under our jurisdiction, if you want to call it that. And it's at the furthest end, up on Oak Street. It's almost collateral or contingent to the existing
Pine Oaks?
Cape ranches that are on the right side of the road.
So it's 15,
Where is
Oh,
it in
15.
relation to Pine Oaks, which is already affordable housing?
beyond that,
Exactly.
Beyond that.
It's at the opposite end.
Other side,
beyond the
other side.
entrance. Beyond
The
the
opposite
It's
beyond
on
the
the north
entrance.
side.
Oh,
North
okay.
side of the
The
entrance.
So
Oh, 15, the woods there.
But,
this, no, you go ahead.
okay, again, I was delirious with fever, but I got a good sense of it. they wanted to just bring us in for information, let us know this will be transferred over at town meeting this year to the Affordable Housing Trust, these 2 plots of land, where they'll then do a feasibility study on what they can put on the land. As we knew, and then they admitted they know, there's a lot of environmental issues there, so what they're looking at putting up are just not large-scale housing, well, single-family domains, right, with, right along the street. And because they think the land that they have is the only buildable land is right along the street.
And I tried to do it in a nice way. If you remember, we had a consultant who's worked with us before. His name is Mark Mungem. And we explained that we had walked this property and the environmental issues and so on deemed it such that we would not be able to use it. Now, they may find out exactly the same thing. So, Pete, quickly.
I've been involved in this particular question for over 18 years.
Yeah.
I was involved in it 18 years ago when they built Pine Oaks.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I don't believe that this didn't come up in your conversation, but the town made a commitment. If you let us build Pine Oaks over here on Oak Street, we will not ask for any more housing on Oak Street. And there's a guy named Houston, who's a teacher at the high school, who lives in the area. He has come out and spoken very strongly against it also. But then about 7 or 8 years ago, this thing came up again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, there was a selectman named Sid Ziegler.
Right.
He retired up in Maine. He came back down here and spoke to the selectmen's meeting and said, we made a promise not to build any more housing on Oak Street. Now you're breaking the promise. So someone's got to go back and dig that up, but there's a record of that.
Yeah. Well,
Good to
what I referenced in my comments to the planning board was, sort of in this line, Pete. I mentioned the fact that the Pine Oaks project, which was supposed to benefit the golf course property indirectly, I said, we lost big time. We never got the electric upgrades we were supposed to. We never got gas. We got nothing out of the deal. So, I think this is, it's an important issue. And another point, when I was on the repurpose committee for the middle school, the subject came up indirectly about property available for housing. And at that time, select person Linda Sabula was very vocal about the fact that the town then had some 92 properties that are available for housing.
Yeah.
So, it'd be kind of easy to say, we did our part when we did the Pine Oaks project, but we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. I'm sure there will be discussion at town meeting about this.
But it's good to look up that documentation so you can reference,
Yeah.
the specific document and the dates and all this, as opposed to
Unfortunately,
here.
Pete, if you remember too, in referencing what was promised to the golf operation,
Yeah.
the sad part was, remember this? None of it got written down.
Right.
So I hope, regarding Mr. Ziegler's comments,
I will contact Richard Houston. He may have some of the records.
Yeah.
By the way, his name has been in the paper.
Yes.
He's the guy that runs in the marathon.
Right.
yeah,
He's very,
Yeah.
he's a teacher at the school. He's very well spoken. I will contact him.
thank you. Thank you, Pete.
Right.
John, you
I
had a
might
comment?
add, Peter, he's been teaching for 39 years.
Yeah.
He's an extraordinary history teacher.
Right.
Good man.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we pushed out this, under a different management group in town, about the gas line and the electric line, they laughed at us. Said, no, there's no record of that, so we had
Yeah,
tough.
exactly,
So,
exactly. Did I miss anything, Ron? 'Cause I'm
No, I mean, I think their point was, this is a courtesy meeting because this is happening.
Yeah.
And I don't know, my only question, once again, I was delirious with fever, was what they have for an idea for a footprint for a building.
Yeah.
And they said that'll all come out with a feasibility study. So the process will be, they'll transfer it over to the Affordable Housing Trust, then they'll pay to have a feasibility study done, what they can do with the land. Then they'll determine the most advantageous plots of land they have. I don't know if it's a fight to fight, because,
Exactly.
I talked to Sean, we have no use for the land, because it's we walked it with Mark Mungem, and it was determined unbuildable
Yeah.
for anything golf-related.
And I just remembered one other point. I made the overture, I explained the fact that, this land, and the fact that we're stewards of this property is an important thing. And they tried to weigh that against, well, affordable housing is an important issue. And I suggested that it is. However, our stewardship over this Cranberry Valley property is very much focused on developing the game of golf as a recreational outlet, especially for young people in the town. And I think that resonated with them to some degree. But, we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah.
Okay, Rome. To you, Tom, you've already touched on the subject, the Harwich charter changes, and
Right, it came to me, I'm not sure how it came to me, but it was pointed out to me that the section in the town charter, section 13, Golf Committee, subparagraph 713(2) had changed. It used to be that the committee shall have full power and responsibility for recommending, for recommending governing policies related to the maintenance and operation of the municipal golf course. It's been changed to the committee shall recommend governing policies related to maintenance or operation for consideration to the Board of Selectmen. So I researched it. I found that apparently two years ago, we went to town meeting to change the charter.
Yeah.
And included in there was this limiting of the golf committee's ability, in my mind, to make decisions, and reducing it to making recommendations about policy to the selectmen. And it's in the town charter now. And I understand from Anita Doucette that it took a year for it to get on the agenda after it had been passed by town meeting. And then the next year it goes and becomes official. It's one of those things that the statute requires that that happens. So actually, whereas we used to have full power and responsibility, we now recommend governing policies relating to the operation of and supervision of the golf course to the Board of Selectmen. And I wish someone had come to us and explained what was happening and why, but no one did.
No.
And so I'm wondering, what is our role? Well, I mean, it's obvious, I can read what's written here, but it feels like that, and I mentioned to someone that we would meet and make a decision, the next day it would be implemented. That's no longer the case, according to this language. But no one has explained this to us, and no one has said, this is the reason. I asked questions, why, what was the origin of the change? Who brought it up, and who spoke for and against? What evidence or issues were considered by the Charter Committee that convinced the group to recommend this change? And what were the problems that this was supposed to solve? Nothing. I get no responses from anybody.
I may have some answers to that, Tom, because I know when I was first hired, that I was told by the town administrator and then the assistant town administrator, because it was a little bit confusing when I was first hired, who am I directly answering to, and.
Well, that was never, you always, well, no, I'm sorry, there was some confusion about that, because the chairman of the golf committee used to evaluate the director of golf.
Right.
And there was really no written authority for him to do so that I could ever see. And so, in fact, rightly so, you report to the town administrator. No question about that.
I think that they referenced, I guess I was hired 4 years ago or so, they referenced that exact, in fact, I told Clem, I think this is just maintenance for something a change that happened much earlier than that just was not upgraded in the policy and in the charter, because they do the Charter Review Committee does a few of these every year. I think that it's just a maintenance process.
I think they've
I
engaged
wouldn't expect it to change a thing. I don't think The selectmen are
Well, the
expecting you guys
language
to
has
change the thing.
changed significantly, in my mind, so that, I mean, the words full power and authority's been crossed out. And substituted was recommend governing policies. So, I mean, that's a significant difference. And I'm wondering, what is the meaning of it? I mean, are we gonna come up with some decisions that after some research, come up with something, and the selectmen are gonna say, that's not your role? Your role is just to recommend these things. You have no authority to do this. So, just a question, you know.
I know in our office, they tell stories, I don't know how far back you go back on this, but the golf committee used to, somebody from the golf committee used to have to come in and sign
They-
bill schedule, sign the weekly payroll.
They
And they said
sign-
it was a nightmare, you could never track anybody down to sign the stuff, and so I think whenever they changed from a commission to a committee, because it changed from a commission to a committee, didn't it, well before my
Exactly.
time? I think
that-
that's probably when the
That was
changes
changed
occurred.
probably about 12 years ago, something
Right,
like that, when we came on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, thus far, nothing's been communicated to me officially, or I would have shared it with you, gentlemen.
that's
I
my
think it's
point.
just part of a basic house cleaning that they've done across the town regarding committees. Because at the time, I think Tom, or I'd like to think this, I know that Mike McCaskill in particular looked at town-wide committees and basically said, some of these committees have never had, they've been on paper, they've been paper committees, but actually haven't done much of anything. And I think there was an attempt by him to consolidate some, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
where would you like us,
Well, I don't know what, you know, the group, it's, you know, it seems to me that the role has changed significantly. And the question is whether we're gonna be caught on this at some point without, you know, I mean, the language has changed.
Yeah.
So, is anything
Obviously
changed?
new, but I think Roman ought to have the ability to manage the department that
No question.
he has responsibility for.
It makes sense that if you have a major policy that you want to discuss here, it makes sense to send them a recommendation to the selectmen, right?
No,
which
there's no-
we've done, which we have consistently done.
There's no question, Jack, about that. Matter of fact, in the new charter, the director of golf operations or employee having the general powers of supervision shall day-to-day supervision the town administrator. Under the scope, that's always the way we felt about Roman. And also Dennis was, he reported, we never evaluated anybody. The thing that I worry about is we make decisions and then we expect to have them implemented right away. But if someone out in the selectmen say, excuse me, that's not your role anymore. Well, if that's the case, we ought to know it now, that's all. You know, there should be no mystery to this. And since the language has changed significantly, the question is, has our role changed? You know, that's all.
But if you use the example of the Chatham rate instruction.
Yeah.
I think, I wasn't a member of the committee then, but I think, if I recall, because I used to come to the meetings then, the golf committee did recommend that it be charged a different rate than the Harwich residents, and the selectmen voted it down.
That's correct.
But,
Right.
I mean, that seems to be the model that they're suggesting that we operate under.
Well, but Jack, that was always true about rates. Because all we did was recommend rates.
Yeah.
It was never an argument about that.
But what was, I mean, Clem mentioned, some members of the golf committee had to sign off
But that was before we
on,
were.
That was before, that was the previous generation.
That was,
That was a
golf
long
that
time
was
ago.
back in the
That was
seventies.
before, that was
Yeah, that
before.
was not when we were here. Yeah. It's just a thought. You know, something's changed and I wonder what's the impact. That's all. You know? So that's my report.
Okay. Tom, thank you. Public comment, finally. Ladies?
I understand his concern.
Oh, I know. We're not, we can't be naive. But thus far, it's been a pretty positive collaborative effort. I mean,
To that point, has anyone heard anything informally or formally, okay,
No.
that basically says that we're stepping into somebody else's sandbox?
no. And
I'm
I
not
think,
hearing it, no.
you know, and I think until that, that point in time, I mean, when you think we brokered this $1 million project
Yeah,
without incident, if you will, I mean, I feel as though it's been a pretty seamless,
I think they did,
process.
I think they did some charter maintenance for something decision that changed a long time ago, and if nobody's spoken with you, they expect you to keep operating as is. It's hard to say nobody said anything about it, though, because it was voted on at town
Town
ballot
meeting,
2 years
yeah.
in a row, and at town meeting. It was part of
Yeah.
the town meeting warrant, so it's
Right.
been out there in the public.
I mean, I've been on this committee for a few years now, okay, and I see the model working very well in the sense, you put a lot of thought into the logic behind
Yeah.
a recommendation which you make to us. And you says, what do you think?
Right.
Okay, and we give some feedback,
Right.
not only as a committee, but also as
right.
resident taxpayers, okay?
Right.
And you take that and from there, it goes from there. The cart replacement,
Right.
we volunteered, okay, to work with you to provide any and all support that you would need, okay? And things like RFP templates, whatever it is, okay, to help you to basically take some of the weight off your shoulders.
Sure.
And that model seems to be working well.
I think that's the reason I think they don't want to see any change. I think they updated some language, but they expect you to keep operating the same. I know from my impression, what the selectmen really like, I don't hate to imply, but I think what they really like is when there's a discussion on rates and fees, or on a car lease, or any kind of lease come up, they like to see me and Clem stand there and say, this is my recommendation, and the golf committee agrees. They like to see both of us, so, I mean, I think that's the way they like it. And if there's a difference, like there was a difference a couple of years ago on the Chatham rates and fees, well, let's talk it out.
in other municipalities too, unfortunately, and there's one town that comes to mind, I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying, but it seems like the committee's going that way and management's going in the opposite direction. And I think we're very fortunate to have this kind of partnership,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't think they expect anything different.
Yeah.
If it was worth asking, I think I watched on the television, you addressed it briefly with Mike McCaskill on the,
Yeah.
on the television show you're on, and
Right.
you said the golf committee's advisory. I don't know, I think if they haven't said anything, they don't expect you to operate differently.
Well, you know, I used to write policies when I was associate superintendent of schools in Florida. And you don't write policies and change them unless there's a reason to do so. So I'm somewhat conditioned to say, why was it changed? Now, the whole point about, someone said, well, they've changed a lot of them, like your point about how many committees and the
Yeah.
rest of it. But there's a fundamental courtesy. I think that this is a very good committee, one of the best I've ever been on, because I think we're very frank and honest, and we have a very good guy that kind of implements the whole thing. It's really like a family. It's not contentious at all.
Mhm.
And so the question is, there should be some professional courtesy to say, we changed the language, but don't worry about it. Or the thing that I worry about is something's going to happen that someone says, no, it's changed, so you can't do that anymore. I say, wait a minute, we've put a lot of energy into this, you know what I mean? That's all. It's just a thought.
Let's hope we never see that.
Exactly. 5:30 hour, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Non-debatable.
John, we're all set.